In March of 2026, Andrej Karpathy posted this. He's one of the founding researchers at OpenAI, one of the people who built the AI you're using right now. And here's what he actually wrote. He says that all of these patterns are matters of org code, that an IDE helps you build, run, and manage them, that you can't fork classical companies like Microsoft, but you'll be able to fork agentic ones. That's a lot packed into one paragraph. So let's break it down. The cartoon isn't Karpathy's. It was drawn in 2011 by a Google engineer named Manu Cornet as a joke. 6 little org charts, one for each of the biggest tech companies of the day. No data, no manifesto, just shapes. The cartoon went viral inside those companies because the shapes were too accurate to laugh off. Amazon, a perfect tree. Every node reports up to exactly one node. Information flows strictly up and down, no lateral lines. This is Bezos-era Amazon, obsessed with accountability and the 2-pizza team rule. Every team small enough to be fed by 2 pizzas. It scales. It does not adapt fast. Google. Total chaos. Every node connected to nearly every other node. A dense mesh with no clear hierarchy. This is what happens when you hire thousands of brilliant people, give them 20% of their time to chase any project, and let 100 ideas bloom at once. Communication is everywhere. So is redundancy and noise. Google has launched and killed more products than any company alive today. Facebook. Dense and flat. Every node connects to nearly every other node. No real hierarchy. No clear chain of command. This is move fast and break things drawn as a diagram. A company built around speed, where management layers were the enemy and everyone was supposed to reach everyone else directly. It scaled fast. There was just no obvious mechanism for saying no. Microsoft, separate clusters, and they're pointing guns at each other, literal guns in the cartoon. This is the infamous stack ranking era, when Microsoft's internal review system forced employees to compete against their own teammates. To get promoted, someone else on your team had to fail. The dysfunction wasn't a culture problem, it was baked into the wiring. Apple. Every line in the chart leads back to a single red dot at the center. One person, all decisions. The sun that everything else orbits. This is Steve Jobs drawn as a structural reality. The company was one person's nervous system stretched across 30,000 people. Oracle. A standard hierarchy with 2 things labeled. One says engineering, the other says legal. And legal is bigger. Oracle has used lawsuits as a core business strategy for decades. The lawyers aren't support staff. They're a power structure of their own, sitting next to engineering at the top. For 15 years, this is how everyone read the cartoon, as fingerprints, as personality sketches. Then Karpathy looked at it. Here's the first thing he says. All of those patterns are just matters of org code. When the nodes are humans, the patterns are invisible infrastructure. They live in habit, culture, and history. You can describe Amazon's hierarchy in a paragraph. You cannot install it. But what if the nodes aren't humans? What if each node is an AI agent? An agent is just software that takes instructions, processes information, hands tasks to other agents, and reports back when it's done, the way a junior employee might. When the nodes are agents, the cartoon stops being personality sketches. They become wiring diagrams. Amazon's hierarchy is just a tree data structure. Apple's solar model is just a single orchestrator with spokes. Microsoft's adversarial silos are just clusters with limited cross-permission. The shape of a company stops being a cultural artifact. It becomes a configuration file. It becomes code. That's the first phrase decoded. Org code. Next phrase, the IDE helps you build, run, and manage those organizations. An IDE is like a programmer's workshop. One piece of software where code gets written, tested, debugged, and shipped. Almost everything on your phone got built inside one. These already exist for code. Cursor, Claude Code, Codex. Tools where an agent can read your entire codebase, make changes across dozens of files, run tests, catch failures, and fix them without you touching a line. The developer watches, steps in when needed. The agent does the work. Karpathy is saying that this same kind of workshop is coming for organizations, not for code, but for structure. A place to wire up agents, watch them work, see where information bottlenecks, and refactor on the fly. Which is why all of this is about to move fast. Last phrase, and this is the one. You cannot fork a classical company, but you'll be able to fork agentic ones. To fork something in software means copying it whole, changing the parts you don't like, and then running your own version. The original isn't disturbed. You just have a new working copy that's now yours to evolve. An everyday example of this would be a recipe. You take your grandma's lasagna, copy it down, swap the ricotta for cottage cheese, and you've made a new lasagna recipe. Same skeleton, different result. You haven't disturbed grandma's kitchen. In software, people fork all of the time. Linux, WordPress, thousands of projects you've never heard of. It's how huge amounts of modern software got built. And here's why the recipe analogy bends. With a recipe, you still need ingredients, time, and a kitchen. Forking software is closer to free, almost the press of a button, and that's why this idea gets dangerous when we apply it to companies. You cannot fork Microsoft. You cannot copy 200,000 humans, change the part where the divisions sabotage each other, and spin up a competing version by next Tuesday. The structure is locked inside the people and the history. But if a company runs on agents and those agents are wired the way Amazon's hierarchy works, that wiring is now a repository. Someone else can clone it, strip out the dysfunction, improve the communication layer, and then ship it by next Tuesday. That moat, centuries of accumulated human complexity, just became a template. This is where it gets quietly unsettling. For most of history, the structure of a company has been kind of an accident. Founding moment, first hires, first crisis. Once that shape sets, it almost never changes. It's why most reorgs fail. You're trying to rewire something that doesn't want to be rewired. Agentic organizations don't have that problem. Their structure is explicit, readable, editable, designed. So the question of who decides how power flow shifts. Away from HR, from boards, from decades of accumulated inertia, it moves to whoever controls the code base. And that's a much smaller number of people. Now look at the post one more time. 3 phrases: org code, the IDE, fork. Until last year, those 3 phrases only meant something to programmers. Together, they describe what's coming for every company on Earth. Every organization in history got shaped by the people who built it, and the moment they built it in, the shape set, and after that, it almost never moved. So here's the question Karpathy left under the cartoon. The one this whole post quietly asks. What happens to power when the org chart becomes open source?